You can drive perfectly for 40 years and still get punished in 2026 like you're a reckless teenager, without a single police officer ever speaking to you. The ticket just arrives in the mail, weeks later, with a photo of your license plate, a timestamp, a speed number, and a deadline. Then, months after that, your insurance quietly jumps 25% and nobody explains why in plain English. You call. You wait on hold. You're told it's risk recalculation, and suddenly you realize what actually changed. The road didn't change. The enforcement system did. If you're over 65 and still driving the way you've always driven, 2026 is a high-risk year. Not because you forgot how to drive, but because the country is shifting from human discretion to automated enforcement. Cameras, sensors, algorithmic ticketing, insurance-linked databases. This new machinery does not care that you've been careful. It doesn't care that you only glanced for a second. It doesn't care that you were stopped at a red light. It only cares that a system recorded a violation. This is Immigration News Desk. I know we usually focus on immigration policy, but today we're talking about something that hits immigrant families and senior households especially hard: the real-world consequences of automated enforcement. Because when you're a senior on a fixed income, or you're a family managing tight budgets, a surprise $300 citation and a 3-year insurance premium hike isn't annoying. It's destabilizing. And for many immigrants, it becomes even worse. A driving violation can collide with identity verification, license renewal rules, and proof of lawful status requirements in ways that are rarely explained until you're already trapped. Stay with me, because in a few minutes I'm going to reveal the most dangerous part of this new enforcement era. It's not the initial ticket, it's the secondary damage: insurance re-rating, DMV flags, and renewal denials, triggered automatically, often after your ability to contest the event has effectively expired. And later, I'll show you the single habit shift that prevents most of the tickets seniors are receiving right now, even if you don't consider yourself a phone user. It's a small change, but in this system, small changes are the difference between normal life and a paper trail that follows you for years. Here's the core exposé. 2026 is not mainly about new driving laws, it's about new enforcement infrastructure. In the past, you learned a rule change because it was loud. There were news segments, warnings, and often a grace period where a first stop might end with a warning. And even when you technically broke the law, you often met a human being, an officer, who had discretion. Human discretion is imperfect, but it is context-aware. It can see that you're confused, that you're lost, that you're trying to do the right thing, that you're driving carefully. Automated enforcement has none of that. It's binary, it measures, it records, it generates, it transmits. It's governance by sensor. Why is this happening now at scale? Because states are under pressure from 3 angles at once. First, road safety metrics. Fatality rates and accident rates are politically radioactive, and every governor wants to show action. Automated enforcement is easy to market as safety. We're protecting children in school zones. We're protecting workers in construction zones. Those are emotionally unassailable messages. Second, infrastructure funding. Fuel tax revenues are structurally strained as vehicles become more fuel efficient and electric vehicle adoption grows. States still need money to maintain roads, bridges, and enforcement budgets. Automated citation systems generate revenue without needing more officers. That's the cynical part nobody says out loud, but you can see it in the rollout patterns. School zones, work zones, urban corridors, places where ticket volume can be high. Third, liability and administrative efficiency. Municipalities don't want claims saying you failed to control speeding near the work zone. Automated enforcement creates a paper record of "we enforced," which can protect agencies when something goes wrong. It's risk management. Now let's talk about why seniors are disproportionately harmed, even when seniors are generally safer drivers than popular stereotypes suggest. It's because the consequences cascade. A younger driver gets a fine and grumbles. A senior driver gets a fine, then an insurance increase, then a license renewal complication, then possibly a medical review trigger in certain states, then a family crisis because driving isn't a luxury, it's independence. Lose a license at 68 or 78, and you're not just losing a privilege. You're losing access to healthcare, groceries, community, and autonomy. And that brings us to the first major enforcement shift already catching tens of thousands of people. Distracted driving enforcement is getting sharper, broader, and less forgiving. For years, many states treated cell phone violations as secondary enforcement. That meant an officer couldn't stop you just for holding a phone. They needed another reason. That layer of protection is disappearing. In 2026, more jurisdictions are moving to primary enforcement, meaning the phone alone can justify a stop. But even more important than that legal classification is the cultural shift. Enforcement agencies are treating device in hand as high-risk behavior on the level of aggressive speeding. Here's the trap that catches experienced drivers. The definition of use has expanded in practice. You don't have to be texting while driving 70 miles an hour. In many places, tapping a phone at a red light, checking directions for a second, scrolling a playlist while stationary, or dismissing a notification can all be treated as illegal use because you are still operating the vehicle. Your foot on the brake does not convert your car into a living room. The law increasingly sees driver's seat plus vehicle in operation as the threshold. You can be stopped, cited, and coded as distracted driving for behavior you've mentally classified as harmless for decades. This is where the second open loop starts. The expensive damage from a distracted driving citation often hits later, not at the roadside. The fine is painful. Many jurisdictions now land in the hundreds once you add court fees and administrative surcharges. But the insurance re-rating is the long-term bleed. Insurers treat distracted driving like a predictor of claims. That means premium increases can range widely depending on your carrier, state, and record. But the pattern is consistent. A single citation can raise rates significantly, and the increase can persist for years. For seniors, that's compounded by age-based actuarial pricing. Even if you have a clean record, insurers often price older drivers more conservatively. Add a distracted driving flag, and you can get hit hard. And because the insurance change shows up at renewal, months later you may not connect it to the one small moment you barely remember. That's by design. Delayed feedback reduces public outrage. The system gets the money quietly. Now the most infuriating part, you can avoid most of this without spending much, but you have to treat it like a system redesign, not a moral lecture. If you don't have built-in hands-free capability, stop improvising. A $15 vent mount, set up correctly, removes the phone-in-hand trigger. Most phones can read messages aloud and handle calls by voice, but voice controls only protect you if you commit to not touching the screen. That's the key. The camera or officer isn't measuring your intention, it's measuring your hands. And here's the habit shift I promised, the one that prevents most citations. Treat red lights as driving, not as intermissions. No phone at red lights, no quick check. No, I'm stopped, it's fine. This one mental rule eliminates the most common technical violations seniors are now getting cited for. You can be the most cautious driver in your neighborhood and still get tagged by this technicality because your muscle memory treats stops as safe moments. Now let's move to speed enforcement, because this is where automation becomes pure asymmetric warfare. You used to live in a world where speed enforcement was mostly human, an officer's judgment, a tolerance margin, a pullover decision, and sometimes a warning. In 2026, the rise of automated and AI-assisted speed monitoring, especially in work zones and school zones, changes the entire game. In some states and jurisdictions, work zone enforcement systems are paired with radar, timing software, and cameras that capture speed precisely and generate citations without a stop. The system doesn't decide whether you were only 5 miles over. It records the exact number and applies the rule. And because many of these systems operate as civil enforcement, not criminal enforcement, the process is often designed to be frictionless for the government. The notice arrives by mail, and your burden is to fight it, on their timeline, with their procedures. Here's why work zones are the perfect trap. Work zones move, signs change, worker presence can be intermittent. The active condition might be legally satisfied by a single worker behind a barrier far from your lane. You may drive the same stretch of highway 10 times in a month and see no workers 9 times, and on the 10th time the system is active and you don't realize it until the citation arrives weeks later. And this is the part that should make you cautious even if you're not a fast driver. Automated systems shrink the margin. Human officers often ignore minor variances. Machines often do not. Some programs include warnings for first events, some do not. Some jurisdictions treat camera citations as non-point violations. Others share them with insurers or allow insurers to treat them as risk events. The rules are not uniform across the country. That means, "I've never gotten points from a camera ticket before," is not a safe assumption as you cross county lines. Now let's open the next loop. The danger isn't just the fine, it's what gets logged. A logged event becomes data. Data flows to insurance. Data flows to renewal systems, and once it's in the system, you often can't negotiate it away like you could with a human interaction. This is why experienced drivers are getting hit hardest. They're not reckless. They're predictable. They rely on the rhythm of traffic. They go 5 miles over to keep up with flow. They roll slightly in familiar zones. They use the same shortcuts. The machine doesn't reward rhythm. It punishes deviation. So, what is the safest approach in 2026? It's not driving terrified. It's driving deliberately in enforcement corridors. Treat school zones and work zones as zero flex zones. If the sign says 25, drive 25. If it says 45, drive 45. Do not average the speed. Do not assume the system is off. Do not rely on what happened last week. The enforcement environment is changing too quickly. Now, you might be asking, but why is this on Immigration News Desk? Because for immigrant families and seniors, driving penalties are not isolated. They intersect with systems that can amplify harm. For seniors, a citation can trigger insurance increases that make driving unaffordable, which then triggers mobility loss, which triggers health consequences. That's a chain reaction. For immigrants, particularly those who are not citizens, driving violations can become a paper trail that shows up in background checks, benefit applications, and in some cases, immigration discretionary analysis, depending on the severity and pattern. A single minor ticket usually isn't an immigration catastrophe, but patterns, unpaid fines, suspended licenses, and failure to appear issues can become bigger problems than people realize. And there's another quiet intersection: identity verification. Real ID rules, DMV documentation rules, and lawful status verification protocols vary by state. If your license renewal is unexpectedly blocked because of a flag, you can find yourself in a bureaucratic loop where you're proving identity and status at the same time you're trying to fix a driving issue. That is a liquidity trap for your time and energy. It's not just inconvenient, it's destabilizing. Now, let's talk about the part nobody wants to admit. Notification often comes after the damage. That's the defining feature of automated enforcement. You don't get pulled over and warned. You get a letter weeks later. If you moved and your address wasn't updated, you might not even see it. Then you miss a deadline. Then the fine escalates. Then your registration renewal is denied. Then your license is suspended. Then you're driving unknowingly on a suspended license because you never got the letter. And now you've upgraded a civil incident into a criminal risk in some jurisdictions. This is the next devastating mistake: assuming you will always be notified clearly and promptly. In 2026, you must build your own notification defense. That means your address must be current with the DMV. Your mail handling must be reliable. If you travel or live part-time elsewhere, you need a system so you don't miss official notices. Automated enforcement punishes missed mail. Now we need to talk about appeals and disputes, because people assume cameras are always right or cameras are always wrong. Both extremes are dangerous. Cameras can misread plates, radar can be miscalibrated, photos can be unclear, but the system is designed to make dispute inconvenient, which reduces disputes. If you want to fight a ticket, you need documentation and deadlines. That said, the smarter move for most people isn't building a courtroom hobby. It's avoiding the citations in the first place by adapting to the new enforcement reality. This is why I'm focusing on behavior and preparation, not on how to beat tickets. In a world of machine enforcement, prevention is the only strategy with consistently positive ROI. Now let's bring this back to your daily life with a practical protection plan you can implement this week, whether you're 25 or 75, but especially if you're over 65 and your financial flexibility is lower. First, hard rule: no phone in hand while driving. Not at lights, not in traffic, not in parking lots that still qualify as roadways under local definitions. If you need navigation, mount the phone and use voice prompts. If you need to read something, pull over safely, put the car in park, and do it then. This is not about virtue. It's about not giving the system an easy citation. Second, treat school zones and work zones as zero-margin corridors. You are not keeping up with traffic. You are keeping up with a sensor. Drive the posted limit when signs indicate it. Assume monitoring exists. That one change can save you hundreds. Third, build buffer time into your driving. Many citations happen when people are rushing. Seniors often drive slower, but they still get rushed by schedules, doctor appointments, prescriptions, pickups. Leave earlier. It's boring. It's also cheaper than a ticket plus insurance re-rating. Fourth, check your insurance renewal statements carefully. If your premium jumps and you don't understand why, demand the reason in writing. Many insurers will reference driving record changes without specifying. You should know exactly what event is being used to price you. Fifth, audit your DMV records annually. Verify your address is correct. Verify your status is active. Verify there are no unpaid citations you missed. In an automated era, small errors become big consequences when the system escalates automatically. Sixth, if you're a senior and you're worried about losing independence, have a family mobility plan before a crisis. That means knowing local transit options, rideshare assistance, community senior transport, and family backup arrangements. Because the fear of losing driving often prevents people from confronting their risk exposure realistically. Now, I'm going to close the open loop I started with. The biggest danger isn't the new law, it's the new enforcement. The shift from human discretion to automated punishment is a structural change in how you're governed on the road, and the road is where your independence lives. If you take only one message from this video, take this. Your decades of safe driving do not protect you from an algorithm. Your protection is adaptation. Your protection is a few habit changes and a few system checks that keep you out of the automated penalty pipeline. If you want more practical briefings like this, where we expose the hidden policy changes that affect real life, not just paperwork, subscribe here at Immigration News Desk and share this with a parent or grandparent who still thinks, "It's fine, I've done it this way forever." Forever ended when enforcement became automated. Drive carefully, drive deliberately, and don't let a silent camera turn one ordinary errand into a 3-year financial penalty.